You felt it before you pressed play, that tiny exhale, that soft loosening inside your chest, that moment where something in you whispered, "Stop pushing." It's easy to overlook moments like this because they don't arrive with fireworks or revelation. They arrive with stillness, with quiet, with the almost imperceptible sense that you're done carrying what isn't yours to carry. And the strange part is, the moment you relax, the moment you stop tightening your energy around an outcome, life seems to lean closer. The world feels different in the slightest, most delicate ways. Colors seem softer, your breath deepens, your body lets go of a tension you didn't even realize you were holding. You don't have to chase anything. You don't have to force anything. You don't have to convince the universe that you're ready. Because the moment your heart stops reaching, the field starts responding. Not because you gave up, but because you finally open the space where what you desire can actually meet you. This is the quiet power of coherence, and it always begins in the same place, right here in the softening you just felt. There's a shift inside you that's so gentle, most people miss it entirely. Yet it's the moment everything in the quantum field begins to reorganize. It's that instant when you stop trying to hold your life together by force, when you stop rehearsing outcomes in your mind, when you stop gripping the future like it might disappear if you blink. It feels like the faintest drop in pressure, like your energy has been holding a posture it can no longer sustain. And suddenly, the muscles of your inner world unclench. That is the moment the field hears you. Not the moment you speak your desire, not the moment you visualize the outcome, not the moment you ask for what you want, but the moment you stop chasing. Because chasing is a signal of fear, and fear creates incoherence. The heart sends one frequency, the mind sends another, the body sends a third, and the quantum field can't match what isn't unified. But the moment you release the grip, all three begin to harmonize again. Your breath softens, your nervous system downshifts, your awareness rises from effort into presence, and the field, which has been waiting for you to exhale, begins to clarify. What's fascinating is that neuroscience agrees with what mystics have been saying for centuries. When you stop forcing, the prefrontal cortex quiets, the default mode network relaxes, and your brain shifts out of threat-based prediction into open receptivity. In that state, your electromagnetic field becomes more coherent, more measurable, more luminous. Heart math calls it the synchronization point. Ancient texts described it as the open hand. You feel it as relief, not the relief of giving up, but the relief of returning to your own natural frequency. And the moment this coherence emerges, the universe responds in kind, not dramatically at first, but subtly, like a gentle breeze that moves the edges of your life before touching the center. Signs appear, opportunities soften toward you, conversations unfold differently. You notice beauty in places you used to overlook, and the things you once strained to manifest start coming toward you without the strain. This is not magic, it's alignment. The field cannot meet a clenched heart, but it can meet a coherent one, and coherence always begins the same way, with a letting go so soft it feels like the first true breath you've taken in years. Most people don't realize how fragmented their energy becomes the moment they start chasing something. Your mind runs one way, your heart whispers another, your body tightens in quiet resistance, and before you know it, you're sending 3 different frequencies into the field. It's like tuning a radio to 3 stations at once. All you get is static. And the universe doesn't respond to desire. It responds to coherence. It listens to the signal you embody, not the one you plead for. This is why the moment you stop pushing, everything begins to steady. It's subtle at first, a kind of inner clarity that appears without explanation. Your thoughts stop looping, your breath regulates, your awareness shifts from "how do I make this happen" into something softer. I'm willing to let it meet me. That softness is power. It's the exact moment your frequency stops contradicting itself. You might notice your body feels different too, like a loosening around your chest, a warmth behind your sternum, or a groundedness in your belly. These sensations aren't random. They're signs that your autonomic nervous system is shifting out of survival into creation. And when your body moves into coherence, your field strengthens. HeartMath's research shows that the heart sends a more consistent electromagnetic signal when you feel calm, safe, aligned. And that signal shapes the way your reality responds. Less noise, more clarity, fewer mixed messages. It reminds me of what Alan Watts used to say when he talked about the paradox of trying to get water to be still. If you splash at it, it only becomes more chaotic. If you fight it, it ripples. But if you step back and allow it, the surface returns to calm on its own. Your energy works the same way. The more you wrestle with it, the more turbulence you create. The moment you stop interfering, the moment you let your emotions settle without forcing them into shape, the field becomes clear enough to reflect what you truly want, not what you're anxious about, not what you're afraid to lose, what you genuinely desire at your deepest, most authentic frequency. This is why mixed signals dissolve the moment you stop chasing, because you stop broadcasting fear disguised as urgency. You stop radiating scarcity disguised as ambition. You stop holding outcomes hostage to timelines they were never meant to obey. And without all that noise, something incredible happens. Your energy becomes a single, coherent signal. The heart aligns with the mind. The body follows. Your field stabilizes, and the universe, finally able to read what you're actually asking for, begins to rearrange itself around you. There's beauty in this level of surrender. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop fracturing your frequency. You stop confusing the field. You stop sending prayers and panic in the same breath. You soften into coherence. You step into alignment. And in that coherence, you become magnetic. Not because you're reaching outward, but because your whole being is finally saying the same thing at the same volume, in the same direction, in the same steady rhythm. You become a clear invitation, and the quantum field can always hear a steady heart. There's something almost ironic about the way reality behaves. The more tightly you grip it, the more it slips away. The more urgently you try to make something happen, the more the path seems to twist just out of reach. It's not punishment, it's physics. Pressure collapses possibility, not because the universe is withholding anything from you, but because force narrows your field of perception so dramatically that you can no longer see the openings right in front of you. When you push, you collapse the world into a single outcome, and often the wrong one. You stop being available to the subtle ways the universe tries to guide you. You stop noticing the invitations hiding inside silence. And the field, responsive but never intrusive, simply waits for you to return to clarity. Even in quantum mechanics, this pattern plays out. Observation shapes behavior, but stressed observation distorts it. When you approach a probability field from a place of fear, urgency, or scarcity, you're not observing, you're grasping. And grasping makes the field contract. It restricts the natural fluidity that allows matter to organize itself into new arrangements. This is why manifestations stall when you obsess over them, why relationships freeze when you cling, why opportunities hide when you try to control every angle. The universe can't flow around a clenched fist. It needs space to weave. Your body reveals this long before your mind admits it. The shoulders tighten, the breath shortens, the jaw locks. Your nervous system shifts into a protective stance, and protection is the opposite of creation. When the body enters survival mode, your field becomes jagged, incoherent, frantic. An incoherent energy isn't magnetic, it's repelling, not because it's unworthy, but because it's chaotic. And the universe responds to the clearest signal in the room. When fear shouts louder than faith, creation pauses until the signal softens. Many teachers have tried to describe this dance. Some call it the paradox of desire. Others describe it as the tension between identity and intention. But the truth is gentler than all of that. You cannot outforce the universe because the universe was never responding to force. It was responding to your frequency. And when your frequency is built on tension, the field reflects the very tension you're trying to escape. Not as a lesson, not as karma, simply as coherence. This is why surrender is so powerful. Not the collapse of hope, but the release of contraction. The way your breath deepens when you stop demanding timelines to change. The way possibility widens when you loosen your expectations. The way clarity arrives when you stop trying to control how everything unfolds. Surrender doesn't weaken you, it recalibrates you. It returns your energy to a state where the universe can finally meet you without the static. And when that happens, what once felt blocked begins to move again. Not because you chased harder, but because you aligned deeper. The universe doesn't need your force, it needs your openness. And the moment you offer it, possibility returns like a tide. When you stop forcing reality, something quiet begins to happen inside you. So quiet that most people miss it. Your energy, which had been organized around striving, begins to reorganize around receiving. Your mind, which had been rehearsing scenarios, outcomes, and contingencies, loosens its grip. And in that gentle loosening, your identity begins to change. Not dramatically at first, not in fireworks or sudden awakenings, but in the small, almost invisible ways that define who you are becoming. The shift begins where stillness touches your thoughts. There's a particular softness that enters your field when you no longer define yourself by what you're chasing. A new image of yourself forms in the subtle space where wanting dissolves into being. Instead of trying to become someone who has what you desire, you start to feel like the person who naturally receives it. That shift from pursuit to embodiment is the birth of a new identity. It's not thinking differently, it's sensing differently. It's the moment you stop asking, "How do I get this?" and start whispering, "I am the one who resonates with this." Identity is not a decision, it's an atmosphere. Alan Watts often spoke about this without using the word quantum. He said the greatest illusion is the belief that you must push the river. Rivers flow because they are rivers, not because they try. And people flow when they stop trying to be who they already are. In stillness, you stop pushing the river of your own becoming. And without the push, without the strain, your essence rises on its own, not as something you chase, but as something that recognizes itself. Science mirrors the same truth. Heart coherence studies show that when the mind quiets and the breath settles into a natural rhythm, the electromagnetic field around the body expands and stabilizes. That expansion is not just emotional calm, it's identity coherence. Who you believe yourself to be becomes measurable, and it's often in this state, without expectation, that manifestations begin to arrive quickly and quietly, not because you finally earned them, but because your identity no longer contradicts them. There is a moment in this process where you will feel yourself shifting, not metaphorically, but physically. It feels like your energy stretches into more space, as if you're stepping into a version of yourself that has been waiting just to your left or just ahead of you in time, patiently holding the door open. You'll notice decisions becoming easier. You'll sense clarity rising where confusion used to live. You'll catch yourself no longer reacting to old triggers, as if some old script has been removed from your field. These are not small changes. These are identity markers, signs of the self you're stepping into. There's a moment, subtle but unmistakable, where the energy around you begins to open. It doesn't announce itself with signs or fireworks. It reveals itself as space. That space is not emptiness, it's invitation. It's the field reorganizing around a version of you who no longer vibrates with grasping. Wanting creates a signal, but spaciousness creates a doorway. Every desire you've held carries a frequency, and the moment you stop chasing it with tension, that frequency becomes coherent. The desire no longer vibrates as something missing. It begins vibrating as something matching. In that shift, what was once far begins to move toward you because the gap between you and it is no longer filled with resistance. Emotional softness becomes the magnet, not the kind built on need, but the kind built on resonance. When the field senses that you're no longer declaring lack through urgency, it starts guiding everything that belongs to you closer, effortlessly. Alan Watts said that the only thing you can ever truly lose is the illusion that you needed what wasn't aligned. And it's in the stillness, in the unclenching, where that illusion dissolves. What stays, stays because it matches you. What leaves, leaves because it cannot resonate with the person you're becoming. Once you understand this, you stop holding on. You start listening, sensing, allowing, and the allowance shifts your entire frequency. Your body knows this long before your mind catches up. Heart rate softens, breathing deepens, thought loops quiet. These are not small changes, they are the biological markers of alignment. Studies on coherence show that when the heart enters a rhythmic, harmonious pattern, the entire nervous system follows, and the electromagnetic field around the body strengthens. That field doesn't attract through force, it attracts through clarity. What is meant for you senses the stability of your signal. What was once static becomes signal. What was once noise becomes direction. There's something else that happens here, something people rarely articulate. When you release the need to force outcomes, you stop broadcasting conflict, and the universe responds not to your words, not to your affirmations, but to the dominant emotion beneath them. When the dominant emotion becomes, "I am already supported," reality begins to configure itself around that truth. Opportunities subtly shift in your favor. Conversations unfold differently. People who once felt distant become suddenly available. Paths that seemed blocked begin to open with quiet ease. None of this feels dramatic, it feels natural, like something that was always meant to arrive but needed your energy to stop crowding the doorway. Life rearranges itself long before you see any evidence of change, and the moment your frequency softens into coherence, reality begins shifting in places you aren't looking. Conversations that happen without you, choices made by people you haven't met yet, paths opening in spaces you won't walk into for months. This is the sacred choreography most people never notice because they're too busy trying to control outcomes. But when you stop pushing, you start witnessing the elegance of a universe that responds in patterns. You feel the subtle drift of certain people moving away, not because anything is wrong, but because their chapter was complete. You feel a quiet, magnetic pull towards something new, something you can't name yet. You feel choices becoming clearer, as if your body knew the next step long before your mind admitted it. This shift is not mystical exaggeration. It's the physics of coherence. When your emotional field stabilizes, the nervous system stops running survival signals, and the brain begins perceiving possibility instead of threat. Suddenly, options you ignored become visible. Your intuition grows louder. Your environment starts mirroring back your internal alignment. The universe reorganizes at the level of attention. What you see, what you no longer resonate with, what feels undeniably right. Everything begins to follow the flow of the signal you're emitting. And this is where the rearrangement becomes unmistakable. Paths you once struggled to force now unfold with ease. People who drained your energy quietly fade out, almost as if the script rewrote itself while you weren't looking. Opportunities begin arriving at the perfect moment, not early, not late, but in sync with the frequency your heart finally stabilized. You notice patterns you used to ignore, the repeated number, the unexpected message, the gentle nudge in your chest telling you to turn left instead of right. These are not coincidences, they are coherence markers, tiny signatures of a universe aligning around your softened field. Even the emotions you feel begin changing texture. Anxiety dissolves into awareness. Restlessness becomes direction. Uncertainty turns into curiosity. The mind relaxes because it no longer needs to predict what the heart already knows. This is why relationships shift, why habits feel outdated, why old stories lose their power. The universe isn't taking things away, it's making room, not for something random, but for something matched, something coherent, something that resonates with who you are becoming. There is a point in every journey where something inside you settles so deeply that the universe finally has permission to move. It doesn't feel dramatic, it doesn't feel loud. It feels like a small truth landing in the center of your chest, a knowing so clean and quiet that you almost miss it. It feels like exhaling without realizing you were holding your breath. It feels like, I don't need to force this anymore. And that tiny shift, that nearly invisible moment of release, is the moment the quantum field responds. Because the field doesn't listen to effort, it listens to coherence. It listens to the frequency beneath your words, beneath your intentions, beneath your hopes. And when your energy stops contradicting itself, when the wanting relaxes into allowing, the signal becomes clear enough for reality to follow. What happens next is subtle but unmistakable. your mind softens, your body stops scanning, the nervous system reorients itself from survival to openness. Without realizing it, you begin broadcasting a coherent field, gentle, steady, receptive, and coherence is magnetic. It pulls matching experiences toward you the way gravity pulls planets into orbit. This is why manifestations arrive after surrender, why answers appear once you stop searching, why the right people show up when you stop proving your worth. The moment you let go, your identity shifts from seeker to receiver, and the field responds to who you're being, not what you're trying to get. Science mirrors this truth. Neuroimaging shows the heart's electromagnetic field becomes more ordered when you enter a state of emotional coherence, gratitude, trust, acceptance. In that state, neural networks stop firing in stress patterns and begin wiring toward possibility. You literally change the probability landscape you're living in, and quantum physics reflects the same principle. Potential collapses into form when the observer enters a coherent state, not frantic, not desperate, clear, present, harmonized. That is the inflection point where timelines rearrange themselves around your signature. You feel it as a shift in your inner atmosphere. Suddenly, your options expand, new possibilities appear. The right path feels illuminated, not forced. The tug of war between desire and fear dissolves, and a kind of quiet confidence settles in. Not the confidence of ego, but the confidence of alignment. The sense that nothing meant for you requires tension. The sense that what is yours is already moving toward you. The sense that you are finally walking in rhythm with your own becoming. And here is the truth you've been approaching since the beginning of this message. The field was never waiting for you to try harder. It was waiting for you to stop splitting your signal. The moment you return to yourself, fully, gently, honestly, reality recalibrated around that wholeness. This is the point where the universe stops testing you and starts arranging for you, where the path becomes clear, where the timing becomes precise, where the next version of your life begins to move toward you with unmistakable momentum. Stay in this softness, stay in this coherence. Because now that you've entered the frequency of alignment, the field is already responding. In this frequency, your energy doesn't reach outward, it expands outward. It fills the space around you with an unmistakable clarity, a soft, coherent hum that tells the universe, I am ready. And coherence is unmistakably magnetic. You've probably felt it in people before, the ones who don't try to impress you, the ones who don't compete for your attention, the ones who simply exist in their own centeredness. You feel pulled toward them, not because they asked, but because their energy offered something stable in a world full of noise. That is exactly what you become in this new alignment, a stable point in the field. A tuning fork for what is already yours. This is where Alan Watts's insight folds perfectly into modern understanding. He once described letting go as the moment the water becomes calm enough for the reflection to become visible. You don't force the image to appear. You become still enough to see it. And in quantum language, the principle is the same. A coherent field can reflect the future back to you with precision. Your clarity becomes a mirror for the reality you're stepping into. Your stillness becomes the signal the field can lock onto. Your presence becomes the invitation. And this shifts everything. The doubts that once demanded answers lose their grip. The fears that once looped through your chest lose their momentum. You stop rushing toward outcomes because you can finally feel that outcomes are already rushing toward you. You stop fearing loss because there is no scarcity in coherence. You stop questioning timing because you feel the alignment moving underneath your feet. Every part of you begins to soften, and that softness becomes the magnetism. The more you allow, the more your field strengthens. The more you release, the more life reveals. The more you relax into who you are, the more the next chapter unfolds naturally. This is your new frequency: calm, receptive, magnetic. You don't force, you don't chase, you don't reach. You simply hold the resonance of the one who knows, and the field responds. Not eventually, instantly. Because coherence collapses the distance between desire and embodiment. You've entered the frequency where alignment happens without effort, where your energy speaks louder than your fear, where your presence speaks louder than your past, where your calm speaks louder than anything you could say or do. All that's left now is to stay here, to breathe here, to trust what already feels true inside your chest. The field is listening, and for the first time, it hears one clear signal: yours. If you're still here, it means you felt something move inside you. A shift, a release, a softening you didn't have when you pressed play. And that is the proof of everything this message was meant to show you. That you don't need to push to evolve, you don't need to chase to receive, and you don't need to force your life into place. Your presence is already doing the work. Your energy is already speaking for you. And the moment you allowed yourself to settle into this stillness, the field began rearranging itself around you, quietly, precisely, without hesitation. You may not see all of the changes yet, but the signal has been sent. Your coherence has been registered, and the version of you that felt distant at the beginning of this message is now closer than your next breath. That's the part most people never realize. That awakening isn't a sudden leap, it's a gentle remembering. A soft gathering of your future self, pulling the pieces of your reality into alignment, one sensation at a time. And as you listened, something inside you opened to that truth. Something inside you relaxed into its next version. Something inside you whispered, "This feels right." Carry this frequency with you, not as a technique, not as a practice, but as a way of being. Allow more, force less, trust the soft signals, listen to the quiet invitations. You are learning to live in a way that doesn't drain you, but restores you. A way that doesn't scatter your energy, but gathers it. A way that doesn't chase, but attracts. This is the art of coherence, the way your soul was always meant to move. And as you deepen into this new frequency, you'll begin to notice the signs, your breath falling into alignment, your intuition speaking with more clarity, your emotions settling into truth instead of fear. You'll feel the field meeting you halfway. You'll sense the paths that open without effort. You'll watch your life respond to your softness with precision. Everything you wanted becomes easier to reach when your energy stops running from itself. If this message resonated, take a moment and let your chest loosen. Let your breath drop lower. Let yourself feel the quiet recognition rising in your heart. You didn't find this by accident. You were called to it, and the journey is just beginning. If you want to move deeper into this work, into coherence, into identity shift, into the quantum spaces where your future self is already waiting. Stay close. More messages are coming, more realizations, more alignments, more of the truths your soul has been trying to remember. This is quantum coherence, where energy becomes clarity, where stillness becomes power, and where your evolution is honored with light.